Hello everyone, it's Ren here. Welcome to my room, guys. I hope you are doing well today. Today we're gonna take, I don't want to say a detour from the more sort of in-depth serious stuff, because this is serious. We're talking about dangers today. Things that if you're an INFJ, you want to make sure that you avoid. And for example, not having a good haircut or even having messy hair, that's not dangerous, okay? Something that could be improved, as in my case, but it's not dangerous. So we're going to talk about dangers here. Pay attention. You might think you're safe from those, but it's always good to have a radar, okay? It's always good to have a radar. And I'm going to try to, to help you with that, or just at least to navigate this with you. And of course, you can let me know in the comments if you are aligned with these ideas. I think there are more dangers, but these were the first five that I thought of, and I could make more videos on these in the future and maybe other ones. Now, just before I move on, just be aware that from next week onwards, Patreon offers the possibility for people to join my Patreon page for free. So you can become free members. You don't pay an actual subscription. Now, you don't get access to all the content, but I'll be posting some videos and stuff that are mostly on YouTube, maybe some other stuff as well. So you can join for free and then consider supporting me, because it really helps. It really helps as I'm moving to Paris and aiming to try to live somewhat near my workplace, in order not to be too exhausted by everything and being able to actually continue producing content despite everything else that's happening in my life. It really helps. So I encourage you to consider it, and the links are below. There's also, very quickly, a book on the INFJ, the Ecstatic Soul, that you can get for less than $10 down below, and my new novel, The Infinite Castle. Check those out. They're both less than $10, and good stuff. You support me by doing this. So without further ado, danger number one. You'll see that these dangers are connected to a certain extent, in more or less direct manner. They're connected, which makes sense because, we lead holistic lives. And when things don't go well, usually that has a tendency to be holistically driven as well. So danger number one, getting stuck in your own vision. And I use vision with inverted commas, because if you've read this book, you know that I don't think that the term vision is the most accurate to describe the INFJ consciousness, at least a certain sense of direction with the INFJ consciousness. You'll notice, if you pay close attention to, people who have great visions in society nowadays, often they're not INFJs. Most of the time they're not INFJs, but INFJs have prescience, which is a sense that they phenomenologically, in their daily experience themselves as having vision, which sometimes is different from having an actual vision in the eyes of other people. But we experience ourselves as being directed by a vision. Sometimes not completely articulated to ourselves, but nevertheless it's there and manifests itself in lots of ways, which I'm not going to explore here in detail because I have other dangers to cover. But just to say that because we experience ourselves as such, and we sense that a lot of other people don't have that, because the fact that our vision is really more prescient, and therefore that it's not easy to translate into a concrete roadmap to something great, let's say, in society, in postmodern, or neoliberal societies, we often don't really see the fruits of this, and we tend to think that it is devalued by other people, which may lead us to become really, really enamored with our vision or with our prescience, partly as a defense of our identity, but also partly as a coping mechanism, which could go too far, whereby we define ourselves against other people by the fact that we're prescient. And if we're misunderstood by other people, we can sort of zero in so much on our prescience, on our thoughts, that we stop relying on other people and become very stuck, right? And sometimes it can make us dogmatic, it can make us arid, and it can make us unfriendly to others. And in fact, it can make us something that is another danger that I'll cover in a second. So prescience, yes, but always in interaction with other people, always remaining open, not closing ourselves off is fundamental, okay? So that's danger number one. Danger number two is going to be very obvious, so hopefully won't have to dwell on it for too long, is the danger of ignoring the needs of your body, right? So I think it happens at two levels. There's a level at which this is conscious and it's bad. And there's a level at which it's unconscious and it's just as bad, but it's a bit more pernicious because it's harder to activate the necessary, mechanisms to address that issue. So by an example of deliberately ignoring the needs of your body is simply by the fact that you prioritize other needs, such as the needs of your vision, for example. You're stuck in it. Maybe you forget to eat. Maybe you forget to take care of yourself, like being, looking good or, being healthy. Of course, the psychological health that's not there is going to be translated into, maybe a physical challenges with regard to health. So looking good to yourself, looking good to others, being clean, being lean, being this, being that, eating a good diet, doing some exercise. Inferior SEs are going to always be an issue there. We know this. We also know that sometimes in periods of stress, we indulge in things that are not good for our physical health. This is the characteristically infantile, archaic SE manifesting itself, coming into opposition with the dominant function. This is something that Carl Jung talks about very eloquently and very accurately in this sense. Now, just to be clear, all of these dangers I'm talking about, I want to come clean and say I have experienced them to varying degrees over time. I have experienced them. I've been through them, and I think it's always a struggle because, again, being psychologically INFJ means that, you don't just solve an issue and move on. You just have to remain aware because these issues might creep back. And, you have to watch out. And this is happening to me, and this is probably happening to you guys to some extent as well. So, third danger now, ignoring your social needs. So, not the needs of your body in the first instance, but your social needs. And that is also doubly problematic. It's doubly problematic because in the first place, everybody has social needs. And if you're stuck in your vision, if you ignore the needs of your body, maybe, there are multiplier effects here. You might come to feel that you don't need the social because you have this obsessive love for your vision, which is unhealthy, okay? But also maybe you feel like, because of because you probably have low self-esteem as a result of ignoring the needs of your body, maybe you are a little bit shy of interacting with others. Of course, you never admit that to yourself. You'll admit, you'll prefer to the master narrative of, well, I don't need others because I have this great vision. You intellectualize as a coping mechanism for actually what is a form of much more human and everyday inferiority complexes. Okay, so it's something to be aware of. And it's doubly problematic because the INFJ is never more satisfied in life. It's wrong to think that the INFJ is satisfied in life when they have come across or managed to develop something that they really like in their own minds. This is in fact much more likely to be possible, although never completely satisfying because we need others regardless of type. But it's more likely to happen to a more satisfactory level of autonomy with TI dominant people who have, sometimes this expression of the TI castle, which I believe comes from cognitive type. They're a source of great expressions. TI can build things and be amazed by the beauty of it in itself. TI dominance has FE as inferior, you see. INFJs do not. INFJs are quintessentially FE in so many ways that they're never happier and ever more satisfied than when they're able to share the fruits of their prescience and their rational thinking and so on, future thinking. So the social role here is important. So if you ignore it, not only do you ignore your basic human needs, but perhaps you are also failing to fulfill your INFJ role, right? That'd be even more the case if you're an ENFJ, but it's still the case if you're an INFJ. And also another thing that I wanted to mention is, because I didn't really talk about, I kind of skipped the idea that you can be unconsciously ignoring your physical needs. So that's something that's just as problematic, but it's, in a way, it's harder to activate how to address that because it's unconscious. Well, that's connected to unconscious SE, which, in the Ecstatic Soul, I often talk about how you access SE through FE. So if you move to fulfilling more of your social needs, you'll inevitably be engaging SE more. And that will inevitably also help with addressing the needs of your body. In fact, it might, it's happened to me before, that in that FE context, someone comes to me and say, Ren, you're not taking care of yourself enough. You're too skinny, you're gaunt, or you're too this, you look run down, or you look, you know, whatever. You can get a bit defensive, and then you think about it. You're like, was that person trying to hurt me, or was that person trying to be of support? Who are they? Usually these people, someone I care about, someone I know cares about me. They can make you aware of that. So in addition to your SE being necessarily more engaged, the FE connection with other people will help you kind of be more attentive, okay? The fourth danger, which is very much linked to the first and the third, so getting stuck in your vision and ignoring your social needs. If you are already a victim of these, you're very likely to fall for the fourth danger, which is to become misanthropic. Misanthropy, you're alone, you define yourself against other people. The more you allow this to happen, maybe you're stuck in an ITI loop, the more you also, you get a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy, because the more you isolate yourself, maybe you have a secret hope that people will finally realize that, you know, your vision is worth something. But in fact, as long as you don't engage them, they're probably not going to come to you. And that will inevitably confirm your notion that people are dumb or stupid, or they don't deserve what you have to share, and that you're bound to be alone, and that reinforces your isolation, your alienation. And it's sort of, at its foundation, you have this sense of misanthropy, which is dangerous. You know, you don't, and a misanthropic INFJ is not a happy INFJ, okay? It might be tempting at times, because not everyone is equal, and there are people who are sheep. We know this. It's not the right approach to think people are sheep, therefore I ought to be a hermit. And maybe that can be done by very few people, but the majority of us, me included, can't, okay? So be careful not to be misanthropic, and if you start feeling this way, think of the other dangers that may have contributed together to that fourth danger. And finally, the fifth danger, I put it at the end because in some way it's only distantly related to the other four, although it is connected in the sense that it comes from the combination of NI and FE to a great extent. It's something that some of us may have experienced, and it's the psychological nurse syndrome, you know. Happens often in relationships. So sometimes INFJs can avoid the contact of others, not because they have in the first place been disappointed by the fact of being misunderstood with regard to their vision, but they may have been actually hurt or burned by a psychologically wounding relationship, hurtful relationship, harming relationship, which makes them retreat and not believe in the possibility of opening up again. And often INFJs, when they are starting to explore all the potentialities of their FE, they're seeking to calibrate their FE. They may, in the first place, be a little bit too open, perhaps. You know, you calibrate unless you get to the right level of openness, you know, so you don't want to be like this, you don't want to be like that, you're kind of like this, and you know who you want to interact with. And sometimes people can't be helped by yourself. You're not supposed to fix them. They have a lot of issues. They can be very attractive to an INFJ in the first place, because again, that's one way of developing their FE. There's a high aspiration, especially for younger INFJ, to engage FE. And at first, these psychologically wounded people who need help, but maybe not your help, will be almost seen as like a way for the INFJ to be a savior, right? And they'll turn into psychological nurses. It cannot be good for the other person, who probably needs, more than anything, the support of a therapist. But it cannot be good for you either, because that other person, through their wounds, might wound you as well, you know. And in some sense, it's not really their fault. It's just due to the fact that they're wounded themselves, and that you're taking up a position that should not be your position, and you expose yourself to that wounding in turn. So be careful with the psychological nurse syndrome. It happens to a lot of INFJs, something I've noticed. It's never something I've theorized as such. It's just something that I've, in practice, experienced a lot in terms of my interactions with other INFJs, their testimonies, and my own experience. I have been a psychological nurse in the past for many years, and it's been incredibly, incredibly damaging. Really be careful, okay? You want to be hanging around people that are, you know, especially if you're in a relationship, look for someone who's healthy. Look for someone who, and by healthy, I don't mean that they need to be like 100% healthy. Of course, nobody is 100% healthy, you know, but someone who is already working on their stuff, and is not relying on you to fix them. That's the most important thing, you know. Someone could be going through stuff, as long as they're not relying on you to fix them. Be careful, because not only will you expose yourself to that risk, but often you'll jump straight in because you think it's valuable, but it's not. Okay, so those were my 5 dangers: getting stuck in your vision, ignoring the needs of your body, ignoring your social needs and thereby your social role, becoming misanthropic, and falling prey to the psychological nerve syndrome. Let me know in the comments what you think, and you know, don't forget my Patreon page. Really, really helps, like I said. And I'll see you tomorrow, guys. Okay, take care. Bye-bye.